Tonight, I desire to show you something that very few men ever come to understand, not because it is hidden, not because it is secret, but because it is simple, and the mind of man has been trained to worship complexity. You may have been taught that money comes through struggle, through long labor, through painful effort and endurance. You may have believed that wealth is the result of luck, of strategy, of knowing the right men in high places. Yet I tell you this evening, money comes to man through the state he occupies. You do not earn wealth, you express it. For all that you possess in this world, you possess only because of the state of consciousness you have assumed as true. This is the great law of the self. What I am conscious of being, that I am. If you are conscious of being poor, no amount of labor will lift you into abundance. If you are conscious of being wealthy, the world must arrange itself to reflect that inner identity, not someday, but as soon as the assumption becomes natural. Tonight we are not dealing with theories. We are not dealing with hopes, wishes, or desires. We are dealing with identity, for the state you wear is the world you walk in. The aim of this lecture is not simply to give you money. Money is only the shadow. The true gift is the end of financial worry. For once you assume the state of wealth, you cease to chase supply, and instead become the source from which supply flows. So hear me clearly. If you assume this state tonight, truly assume it, your worries about money will fade as naturally as night dissolves into dawn. Not by force, not by effort, but by law. For the outer world is only the echo of the inner proclamation. And now, before we go further, I wish to ask something of you, not as a formality, but as an act of creation. When a man declares a truth aloud, he does more than speak, he summons. So when this experience has stirred something in you, do not let the realization linger silently within your heart. Give it form, give it breath. Declare your new state. Write, speak, affirm, not to inform the world, but to establish your claim upon consciousness. So when this lesson settles in you tonight, make this declaration: I now assume the state of wealth. Do not write it timidly. Do not speak it as though you are pleading. Speak it as the one who is, as the one who has, as the one who needs no permission from the world to be what he dares to assume. For when you proclaim your state, you send a signal through the vast field of consciousness itself, and life hears you. And the world, obedient as always, must shape itself in harmony with your assumption. Now, let us begin. Let us step into the state from which wealth springs effortlessly, not as a visitor, but as its rightful inhabitant. To understand wealth, you must first understand states. A state is not a situation outside of you. It is not the balance in your purse, nor the figures written upon a ledger. A state is a quality of consciousness, an inner identity from which all external conditions flow. You are not the man who possesses money. You are the man who is conscious of being the one who possesses money. The distinction is subtle, yet it marks the line between struggle and ease, between hoping and having. A beggar may inherit a fortune and still remain poor, for his consciousness never rose to meet his new condition. And a wealthy man may lose every coin he owns and rise again to abundance, because the state within him never collapsed. This is why I say, you do not attract money, you express it. Money is not a visitor who arrives from outside. It is the shadow cast by an inner light. When the state changes, the shadow must follow. Now there is a vast difference between desiring money and being the one who has money. Desire says, one day I will be wealthy. But the state says, I am wealthy now. Desire keeps the blessing in the future. The state brings it into the present. Every man who truly manifests anything in this world moves from desire to identity. He ceases to want his wish and begins to embody it. Let us look to Scripture, which is a psychological drama, not a historical record. When Moses asked for the name of God, the answer was never, I will be, nor was it, I might be, if conditions allow. The answer was, I am that I am. This is the eternal formula of manifestation. Whatever follows I am, while felt with conviction, is impressed upon the subconscious and must externalize itself in the world of form. And so when you say, I am lacking, you decree lack. When you say, I am struggling, you decree struggle. When you say, I am provided for, you decree abundance. One may protest, but Neville, how can I say I am wealthy when I see no proof? Because appearances are not causes, they are reflections. The mirror does not create your face, it reveals it. The world does not create your state, it reveals it. Now consider the parable of the talent hidden in the earth. One man, fearful, buried his gift. He believed he had little, and so he protected his little with anxiety. And what he feared came to pass. Even the little he had was taken, not by punishment, but by law. You cannot hold wealth while assuming yourself poor. Contrast this with the story of the loaves and fishes. There were few in number, yet they multiplied as consciousness expanded. It was not the bread that increased. It was the state of abundance assumed inwardly that compelled the outer world to mirror it. Scripture is not teaching you miracles of matter, but miracles of consciousness. The bread is thought. The multiplication is assumption. The abundance is a state. This is why I urge you, do not wait for wealth to appear before you feel wealthy. Feel wealthy, and wealth must appear, for creation is finished. All things already exist in the eternal now. You do not create wealth, you select it by choosing the state aligned with it. Tonight, we are not adding anything to you. We are removing the false idea that wealth is outside. You do not reach for wealth, you awaken it, and when the state of wealth becomes natural within you, money, opportunity, friendships, invitations, all these arise as the natural outpicturing of your inner identity, not by force, not by striving, but by being. Now we continue deeper, for knowing the state is not enough. You must learn to assume it. Let us now turn our attention to the great illusion that governs the lives of most men, the illusion of lack. It matters not how hard a man works, how many hours he labors beneath the sun, how much sweat falls from his brow. If he sustains within himself a state of poverty, his world will continue to echo poverty, for no effort can outrun consciousness. No physical struggle can overcome a mental identity. There are men who toil endlessly and accumulate nothing. There are others who seem to receive with little effort, as though the world bends itself to their feet. And the difference between these men is not opportunity, nor education, nor fortune. It is state. A man who lives in the state of wealth does not attract money. Money simply appears because the world must reflect what he is conscious of being. But a man who lives in the state of lack may earn money, yet will lose it quickly, or fearfully save it, or mismanage it, all to remain faithful to his assumption. This is why you see individuals who climb to great fortune only to return to scarcity, not because life is unjust, but because their outer success outpaced their inner state. They rose in circumstance, but never rose in consciousness. Now let me speak of a subtle truth. Worry is simply prayer in the wrong direction. Most men believe that to worry is to be responsible, to anticipate problems, to protect themselves from loss. But worry is nothing more than a declaration of faith in lack. Every time you worry about money, you rehearse poverty in imagination. You emotionally visit the very conditions you fear. And in doing so, you plant seeds that must grow. Worry is not passive, it is creation. It is a dark form of assuming the end. If joy and gratitude summon abundance, worry summons want. You have been told to pray, yet you pray daily, not with words before an altar, but with silent assumptions in the mind. If your habitual prayer is, I fear there will not be enough, life must echo it. For consciousness is always answered. Now let us look deeper at why most men live in lack, not because the world withholds abundance, but because the mind is conditioned by memory. You believe you struggle today because life is difficult now, but you struggle today because you continue to identify with the self who struggled yesterday. Your bank account is not proof of your condition. It is the residue of an assumption long held. Your present financial reality is not a prophecy, but a photograph of the past, a picture of a state you once embodied. It is the echo of who you used to be. Just as a star seen in the night sky may have died long ago, yet its light still travels, so too your present circumstances may be nothing more than the lingering light of an old identity. You may look around and say, but Neville, these conditions are real. I see the bills. I see the bills. I see the debt. I see the lack. And I tell you, you see only the ashes of a fire already burned. If you continue to define yourself by conditions that have already passed, you condemn yourself to repeat them. But if you abandon the memory of lack and assume the state of abundance, The world must conform to the new identity. Do not ask, how will it change? That is not your concern. Your only responsibility is to assume the state. Life will arrange the means. For the bridge of incident that leads from lack to abundance is constructed not with logic or effort, but through the silent intelligence of imagination. So tonight, do not analyze the past. Do not measure what you have. Do not fear the future. Simply abandon the identity that suffers and put on the new man. For the old state is dead, the moment you cease to give it life. And when you become conscious of being wealthy, truly conscious of it, your world will shift with such ease that you will wonder whether lack ever existed at all. We now arrive at one of the most vital truths in all spiritual psychology. Every word spoken within yourself is a decree, not a suggestion, not a hope, not a passing thought, a decree. The outer world obeys your inner speech as faithfully as the body obeys the brain. For the inner word is the command, the outer circumstance is the execution. Man believes he prays when he folds his hands, or kneels in silence, or speaks aloud before others. But true prayer is nothing more than the silent conversations he holds with himself. The dialogue you repeat within, whether in fear or confidence, is the prophecy of your future. Your inner speech creates your world. Most men do not recognize this, and so they speak inwardly like paupers while expecting the life of kings. They say within themselves, "How will I afford this? What if it doesn't work? I never have enough. I must hold tightly to what I have." These may never be spoken aloud, yet they shape reality more powerfully than any words proclaimed publicly. The inner voice is the true author of your life. Now let us go deeper. Scripture says, "No man can serve two masters." This does not speak of morality, but of consciousness. You cannot be inwardly loyal to fear and outwardly expect faith to reward you. You cannot inwardly rehearse lack and outwardly expect abundance. You cannot inwardly cling to doubt and outwardly receive what only certainty may claim. You must choose your master. Either your inner speech serves worry or it serves fulfillment. If you speak inwardly as one who lacks, the world must answer in kind. If you speak inwardly as one who already has, the world must deliver the evidence. For life is forever mirroring your inner declarations. Let me give you a clear example. There are individuals who earn more money each year, yet their anxiety grows instead of dissolving. Their salary increases, but so does their fear of loss, their need to protect, their suspicion that what they have is not enough. And so they live as poor men in fine clothing. Their state never changed, only their income did. They continue to be poor in consciousness, so their outer wealth becomes fragile, unsteady, often short-lived. And no matter how much comes to them, they remain servants to fear. For the wealthy state is not measured in possession, but in inner ease. True wealth is not the amount you hold, but the absence of worry. Now consider the opposite. There are those who possess little in the moment, yet walk with calm certainty, as though the earth itself provides for them. They do not fret over coins, because they are rooted in a state of sufficiency, and soon the outer world rises to reflect their inner abundance. They need not chase, they need not plead, for their inner decree has already commanded the harvest. This is why I say again, you do not live by the world lives by you. What you whisper to yourself in the night, what you assume as true when no one is listening, that is the voice creation hears. If you truly wish to transform your financial life, you must transform the speech of your inner chamber. Do not speak as one striving to become wealthy. Speak as one who already is. Your inner dialogue might shift from, "How will I get this?" to "All that I need flows to me as naturally as breath," or from "I hope I can afford it," to "I am the one for whom provision is made," or from "I must hold on tightly, or I will lose it," to "What I have comes from an infinite source. It cannot run dry." Inner speech is not merely thinking, it is selection. You select the state by selecting the words you accept as true. And once the state is selected, the world carries out its orders. Let this truth settle deeply. Your reality today is the echo of inner words spoken long ago. If you change the speech, you change the echo. Nothing stands between you and wealth, but the conversation you continue to hold with yourself. Now let us move from understanding to embodiment. For knowledge alone does not transform, being does. I want now to share with you a story, not as theory, but as proof, for nothing convinces the mind more deeply than the testimony of lived experience. Some years ago, a man came to one of my lectures in New York. He was not a man ignorant of labor. Indeed, he worked harder than most. He owned a small business, a shop that sold clothing and household items. He rose before dawn, opened his doors at sunrise, and worked late into the night. Yet, no matter how long he labored, he could not escape his financial troubles. He told me, "Neville, I am drowning. The more effort I apply, the deeper the hole becomes. I sell everything I can, yet I only manage to cover the bills, and sometimes not even that." His voice trembled, not with weakness, but with exhaustion. The exhaustion of a man who believes effort must be the answer, yet finds no reward for his toil. He was a man of strong character, but a broken assumption. He had assumed struggle as his identity. As he spoke, I asked him a simple question. "Tell me, what do you believe about yourself?" He replied, "I believe I must fight for every penny. Nothing comes easily for me." There it was, his inner decree. He did not need new customers, nor new suppliers, nor new methods of business. He needed a new conception of himself. I told him plainly, "Your business is not poor. Your consciousness of your business is poor. Change that, and the outer form must mirror the change." He looked at me with confusion, for he had never imagined that the shop was simply a projection of his inner state. That evening, I instructed him in a simple practice. Each night, before sleep, he was to close his eyes and imagine his store as prosperous, not from the viewpoint of hoping it would be, but from the experience of it already being so. He was to feel the weight of coins in his hand, hear the soft murmur of satisfied customers, see shelves being emptied and restocked. And most importantly, he was to assume the attitude of a man for whom business was effortless and abundant. "Do not visualize customers entering your store," I told him. "Visualize the aftermath, the drawers full, the accounts paid, the relief already experienced." He did this faithfully. The first night, he told me, was difficult, for his mind returned again and again to the sight of empty shelves and unpaid invoices. But by the fourth night, something shifted. He no longer clung to the image of prosperity. He relaxed into it. He felt as though he had gone to bed in one world and awakened in another. Now listen closely. Nothing changed in his business immediately, but something changed in him. He told me, "Neville, I woke with a strange lightness, as if the burden I carried had dissolved overnight." He went to his shop that day, not as a desperate merchant, but as a satisfied owner. He greeted people differently. He arranged items differently. He priced his goods differently, not with fear, but with confidence. And then, without effort, the outer world began to shift. Within a week, he noticed more customers arriving, not in overwhelming numbers, but in a steady flow, as though something had opened. He received a letter from a supplier, offering him merchandise at a discount he had never before been granted. Old customers returned. New ones brought friends. Within a month, his income doubled. Within 3 months, he had saved enough to pay off debts that had tormented him for years. He came to me again, not with trembling, but with tears of gratitude. "Neville," he said, "I did not change my business. I changed myself." And the business followed. His success was not a miracle. It was law. The world responded to the new identity he assumed. He ceased to be a man struggling to survive and became the man whose store prospered. One night he told me something profound. "I no longer imagine success. I am success. The rest is merely evidence." That is the secret. Do not try to change conditions. Do not labor to manipulate matter. Change the state, and matter must obey. For the outer world is nothing more than the shadows cast by the inner being. This man did not attract abundance. He returned to the consciousness from which abundance naturally flows. And just as he transformed his world, so may you. To assume the state of wealth is not to wish for money, nor to long for change, nor to hope that fortune may one day smile upon you. To assume the state is to become inwardly that which you desire to express outwardly. It is to clothe yourself with an identity that feels so natural, so unquestioned, that the outer world simply bends to match it. Most men live as seekers, forever chasing the shadow of desire. They want wealth, but they continue imagining themselves as those who lack it. Their prayers are cries for deliverance, not declarations of fulfillment. They speak, inwardly, words that betray their own longing. I need more money. I hope it comes soon. If only things would change. These are not harmless thoughts. They are creative decrees. For every sentence, whether spoken aloud or whispered silently, is a seed planted in the imagination, and the harvest will always reflect the nature of the seed. So the first step is to define the state clearly. You must cease to be one who desires wealth and become one who is, in consciousness, already wealthy. When I speak of wealth, I do not speak merely of sums of currency or possessions, but of a deep inner assurance that all things necessary for your fulfillment are already provided. The true wealthy man is he who rests, who trusts, who knows. He does not ask, how will it come, nor anxiously attempt to force outcomes. He abides in the end to define the state. You must ask not, how do I get money, but who am I when I already have it? If you were now financially secure, truly secure, how would you feel as you rise in the morning? How would you speak to others? How would you walk through the marketplace, pay your bills, receive letters, converse with friends? You would not rush, nor fear, nor shrink. Your spine would lengthen, your breath would deepen, your eyes would soften. You would move as one whose path is already paved. That is the state. Now, having defined it, you must construct the internal speech that matches it. The outer world may remain unchanged for a time, but you must not betray your new identity by entertaining inner sentences rooted in lack. Your inner conversation determines your destiny, for as I have said many times, as within, so without. Replace the anxious whisper of how will I manage with the calm decree, all that I need is already supplied. Replace I hope money comes soon with money flows to me with perfect ease and order. Replace I don't know what to do with every step is guided. I am led to perfect fulfillment. These words are not affirmations in the mechanical sense. They are the speech of the state assumed. Let us now form the scenes that anchor this state into imagination. You do not visualize piles of money, for the money itself is not the desire, rather what the money affords. Peace, ease, freedom, generosity, expansion. So instead of imagining a vault of currency, imagine the natural evidences of wealth. Imagine yourself writing a check with no hesitation. Imagine a letter arriving with news of financial increase. Imagine someone grasping your hand and saying, I am so happy for you. I knew it would work out. These scenes must be short, vivid, and repeatable. See them from the first-person perspective, not as an observer watching yourself on a stage, but as the one living the scene. Feel your hand move, hear the voice, sense the texture of the envelope, hear footsteps echo in a hall as you walk into a place of opportunity. Your imagination must be clothed with sensation. Now feel the body change. You cannot assume wealth with a tense chest, a tight jaw, and a clenched stomach. These are signals of lack. To embody wealth, relax the belly, drop the shoulders, breathe as though life is already secure. The body must express the state. If you would speak as the wealthy one, your tone must be calm, measured, and without strain. You must breathe more slowly, speak with authority, and move with quiet ease. This is not performance, it is alignment. Carry this state through the day, not occasionally, but continuously. When you find yourself slipping into worry, do not chastise yourself. Simply return to the state. Close your eyes for a brief moment. Breathe and recall the scene. Say softly, I am already provided for. Do not act like one who hopes to receive. Act as one who has already received. When you enter a store, do not ask, can I afford this? Instead, assume the state that all things needed are already yours. When you walk down the street, walk as one who belongs to life, rather than one begging from it. Above all, think from the conclusion, not toward it. To think toward a thing is to confess separation. To think from it is to occupy it. When you think from wealth, decisions change. You no longer choose paths out of fear. You choose out of expansion. You no longer cling to money. You circulate it with confidence. You no longer see opportunities as scarce. You see them as inevitable expressions of your state. A man who thinks from wealth may still have little in his pocket for a time, but his pocket soon reflects his identity. A man who thinks from lack may temporarily gain riches, but will lose them, for he cannot hold what he does not embody. Let me give you sentences that arise naturally from the state, not to repeat mechanically, but to let them emerge as your own inner language. Everything I require is already prepared. Life supports me unfailingly. Money flows to me with perfect ease. I am the one who already has. I walk in abundance. It is my natural state. These are not slogans. They are descriptions of being. Repeat them only when they feel true. And if they do not feel true yet, close your eyes, enter the scene, assume the feeling, and then speak. For the universe does not respond to words. It responds to the consciousness that animates them. There comes a point in the journey where many falter, not because the law ceases to work, but because they return to habit, to effort, to struggle. They awaken to the truth, begin to assume the new state, and then, finding that the world has not instantly reshaped itself, they resort again to force. They try to make things happen. They push, they strain, they hustle. And in doing so, they reveal the secret they have not yet accepted. They still believe they do not have. Effort, in the anxious sense, is always the confession of lack. The moment you attempt to force results, you declare silently, I am not yet the one who has. When a man truly feels wealthy, he does not chase opportunities. He does not plead with life. He rests in the knowing that all things necessary flow to him in perfect order. And when the inner rest is genuine, the outer movement begins. But when the movement precedes the rest, it is not creation, it is panic. The signal that you have not yet assumed the state is anxiety. Anxiety is not a harmless emotion. It is a spiritual contract that binds you to the world you fear. When the anxious man prays for money, he prays as one who lacks it, and therefore his prayer is answered with more lack. When the peaceful man declares abundance, he declares from fullness, and therefore fullness manifests. Imagine an actor upon the stage. He need not try to be the character. He merely accepts the role as already written and steps into it. He does not force emotion. He allows it. He does not fabricate lines through strain. He recalls them from the script. His task is not to create the character, but to embody it. In the same manner, you are not here to create wealth through struggle. You are here to embody the state from which wealth naturally expresses. The world is your stage. The script is written in imagination. You need only step into the role. Do not concern yourself with how. The moment you ask how, you reveal that you still believe the outer world is causal. The outer world is not cause. It is effect. The cause is always the state of consciousness. You may feel a temptation to act prematurely, to move in haste, to grasp at opportunities with the fear that they may vanish. But understand, anything you must seize by force will slip from your hands, for it was never in harmony with your state. What belongs to you is drawn to you. What is not yet yours must wait until the state changes. A man does not pull the fruit from the branches before it is ripe. He waits patiently, knowing that growth is inevitable. Likewise, you must let the seed of your new identity mature. If you accept the state fully, the means will arise without strain. A friend may speak a word, a letter may arrive, a new path may open, and what once required sweat now unfolds with grace. Do not mistake inactivity for faith. Faith is not doing nothing. It is doing only what arises naturally from the state. The wealthy man still acts, but he does not act to achieve wealth. He acts because he is wealthy. His actions are expressions, not attempts, to illustrate this. Consider the man who seeks employment. If he assumes the state of one who is unemployed and desperate, he will knock on doors and write letters with that vibration, and life will echo back his desperation. But if he assumes the state of one already employed, valued, and sought after, he will move through the world differently. Perhaps he feels no impulse to seek at all, and instead a position is offered without effort. Or if he does seek, he approaches with ease, with confidence, and employers feel drawn to him. The same action from a different state produces a different world. So let us go deeper. Rest does not mean passivity. It means alignment. You must act only when action feels natural, effortless, even inevitable. If there is strain in the act, withdraw into imagination before moving. For imagination is the workshop of creation. Action is its echo, not its source. There is a rhythm to creation. First conception, then saturation, then expression. Do not attempt to express before you are saturated. Many begin to imagine, feel a flicker of belief, and rush outward before the state has rooted itself. Be patient, feel it fully. Let the identity settle into your bones, into your breath, into the quiet space between thoughts. When you no longer seek proof, the proof arrives. Remember, you do not manifest what you want. You manifest what you are, and you are defined by what you feel to be true without effort. When you find yourself straining, pause. Close your eyes gently. Return to the scene of fulfillment. Breathe as one who already has. Let the shoulders fall. Let the body loosen and wait. Wait until that subtle shift returns, the one where desire drops away, because fulfillment is already here. That is the signal to move. That is the true beginning of manifestation. Do not struggle to be wealthy. Accept that you are, and the world must conspire to prove you right. Some years after the first story I shared, another family came to me, not for curiosity, but out of desperation. They were a young couple with 2 children, living constantly under the weight of debt. Month after month, they struggled merely to remain afloat. The husband worked long hours. The wife attempted to contribute by sewing garments for neighbors, and still every bill seemed larger than the last. Their life had become a cycle of owing, paying, owing again. And the children, though too young to understand accounting, felt the tension in the home. Silence at the dinner table replaced laughter, and every unexpected expense was treated like a coming storm. They attended one of my lectures, not because they believed they could change their circumstances, but because they had exhausted every other hope, and sought, as the wife confessed to me later, a final answer before surrendering to fate. They did not ask for riches. They asked only for relief. But relief is not granted to those who continue imagining themselves as burdened. One must rise inwardly above the circumstance to see it dissolve. As they spoke to me after the lecture, I asked them each a simple question. What do you believe about money? The husband answered first, with a weary voice, it is something we chase and never catch. The wife added, it always slips away from us. And in those words, spoken casually, yet with conviction, their entire condition was revealed. They lived not merely in debt, they lived in a state of being indebted. Debt was not a number. It had become part of their identity. I told them gently, you must stop imagining yourselves as a family escaping debt, and begin to imagine yourselves as a family already free, already secure, already living with abundance. They looked at me with disbelief, for in their minds abundance was the end of a long road, not the beginning of a new state. But I insisted, do not attempt to climb out of debt, that is to assume debt as real. Instead, assume the end, assume freedom. I instructed them to revise their nightly ritual. Instead of going to bed recounting bills and anxieties, they were to imagine a different scene, one simple, ordinary, and deeply satisfying. I told them to picture themselves sitting at the kitchen table, but this time relaxed, laughing, speaking of future plans without fear. They would imagine the husband bringing home an envelope containing payment in their favor rather than against them. The wife would imagine depositing money rather than calculating shortages. They need not visualize great wealth, only relief, only ease. The feeling of it is done. But I gave them one more instruction, and this was the key. They must change their inner speech. No more statements of lack, no more whispers of we cannot afford this, no more sighs of resignation when money left their hands. Instead, they were to adopt new internal language. Everything is paid. Life provides. We are safe. They were not to say these words as hope, but as truth. Not asking, but declaring. They left with a quiet determination, though still uncertain. The change did not happen in a day. The first week, the wife told me later, was filled with resistance. Every time she attempted to imagine ease, memories of overdue notices flooded her mind. But she persisted. She did not fight the thoughts. She simply returned to the scene of fulfillment, again and again, until the new image felt more real than the old one. One night, she said, something shifted. While lying in bed, she imagined her husband placing an envelope on the table with a smile, not strained, but light, casual, as though financial ease was the most natural thing in the world. She imagined herself sighing, not in fear, but in relief. And for the first time, she felt the sensation of being provided for. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from the dawning realization that anxiety had been her identity. The husband experienced a similar shift. He told me he realized that even when money came, he still thought like a debtor, afraid to spend, afraid to trust. He imagined freedom before it existed, and in that moment, something within him softened. From that night onward, their behavior changed, not through force, but as natural expression. The husband stopped speaking of money with dread. He spoke of it calmly, almost with a quiet pride. The wife no longer apologized when paying bills. She paid them with assurance. They no longer avoided opportunities out of fear. They welcomed them naturally. And then, as always, the outer world began to mirror the inner state. Within a month, the husband was offered additional work, not exhausting, not grueling, but dignified, steady, and well paid. A family member, unaware of their situation, returned a sum of money that had been lent long ago and forgotten. New customers arrived for the wife's sewing, not in desperation, but by reputation. Within 5 months, they had cleared nearly all their debt. But something greater happened. The atmosphere of the home changed. The children laughed again. Meals became joyful. The wife told me, with tears in her eyes, the money was a blessing. Yes, but the true miracle was that peace returned. Their freedom was not purchased by labor. It was assumed by consciousness. They did not crawl out of debt. They left debt by abandoning the identity of those who owed and adopting the identity of those who are supplied. The change was invisible before it was visible. Inner speech shifted before numbers did. And once their identity changed, the world simply rearranged itself to match. Their story stands as a reminder. You cannot escape a state while continuing to identify with it. One must step into the end fully and allow the world to catch up. They were never rescued. They awakened. And just as they stepped out of debt by changing their self-concept, so may you step out of any condition, not by fighting it, but by assuming the state opposite to it. For conditions do not bind you. Identification does. Many times when a man assumes the state of wealth or success, he immediately attempts to imagine how the blessing shall arrive. He begins plotting paths, selecting channels, and arranging steps in advance, as though the imagination must submit itself to the narrow corridors of logic. But consciousness is not limited by the intellect. The intellect sees only what it has already known. Imagination reaches beyond the edges of experience and draws from the unseen. When you assume the state of having, you do not command how the world will bring it to you. You command that it is already yours, and life unfolds the manner of its delivery. The means are never the concern of the one who knows the end. To insist upon a specific channel is to deny the infinite nature of the source. The moment you say, it must come in this way, you reject all other possibilities and bind yourself again to limitation. Consider the air you breathe. You do not dictate the path of each molecule. You simply inhale, and life arranges the breath. So it is with money, with opportunity, with all forms of manifestation. They come not because you manipulate the outer world, but because the inner state magnetizes conditions toward you, and these conditions take forms that the conscious mind could never have predicted. This is why wealth so often appears to arrive through what the world calls coincidence: an unsolicited letter, a chance meeting, a forgotten debt repaid, a change in employment, a gift, an inheritance, a price lowered, a door opened simply because you walked near it with a different state of being. These events are not random. They are the natural outflow of the assumption fulfilled. I have called this the bridge of incidents, the sequence of events that lead from the assumption to its physical expression. You need not foresee the bridge. You need only walk it when it appears beneath your feet. It rises step by step, moment by moment, and each step feels natural, inevitable, often unremarkable at the time. Only later, when the desire has become fact, do you look back and see the invisible hand guiding every turn. Do not attempt to choose the bridge. Do not say, money will come from this job, or this person will help me, or this investment will prosper. Any of these may be true, but you are not to decide the channel. You are only to maintain the state. When the state is held faithfully, the channel reveals itself. Many people attempt to force results because they believe the outer world must be the cause. They write letters, plead, negotiate, chase opportunities, and push circumstances, believing that action produces results. But action is not cause. Action is the echo of the cause. The cause is always within. When you assume the state, the world moves effortlessly. When you doubt the state, you move frantically. A woman once told me that after assuming the feeling of financial ease, she woke with a sudden urge to visit a friend she had not seen in years. The visit seemed trivial at first. They spoke casually, shared tea, reminisced. Yet at the end of the conversation, the friend mentioned an opening at her place of employment, an opening never advertised to the public. The woman applied, received the position, and her income doubled. She later told me, Neville, had I tried to calculate the path, I would have never imagined such a thing. It came through the most ordinary visit. Another man, having assumed wealth in consciousness, decided to take a walk, a simple stroll to clear his mind. He encountered a former colleague who introduced him to a new business partner. That meeting became the turning point of his life. He told me, the walk was not planned. The meeting was not planned, but the event was inevitable once I assumed the state. Yet another student wrote me saying that her debt disappeared not through a windfall, but because a creditor informed her that the balance had been reduced through an accounting revision. The outer circumstances appeared bureaucratic, accidental, rational, but the inner cause was assumption. Do you see? Life molds itself to the state you occupy, not to the logic you plan. You must therefore silence the question, how? For it is the voice of doubt. The question itself implies separation from the end. When the answer lives within, you do not ask how, you simply move. When a fruit ripens on the branch, it does not ask how it shall fall. It simply drops when the season comes. So too will your manifestation drop into place when the season of consciousness is fulfilled. If you feel compelled to act, act, but do not act to achieve. Act as the natural expression of the state already achieved. When the wealthy man feels an impulse, he follows it with calm certainty. When the fearful man acts, he does so in panic, and panic can only reproduce the world that produced it. Hold the end. Feel it real. Let the world form itself around you. The channels will surprise you. The timing will surprise you. The path will appear only after you have stepped upon it. This is the mystery of creation, that the effect is seen only after the cause, and the cause is always the assumption. Life will take care of the details. Your only task is to remain faithful. The moments before sleep are the most sacred moments of your day. For in that gentle descent between wakefulness and rest, consciousness loosens its grip upon the outer world and sinks into the realm where imagination becomes the only reality. In that twilight state, the rational mind is silent, the senses withdraw, and the subconscious stands open, unguarded, receptive, impressionable. It is in this drowsy passage that creation truly occurs. Most men go to bed rehearsing the failures of the day. They carry with them their worries, their accounts, their disappointments, and they fall asleep as the very being they wish to transcend. They do not understand that sleep is not an escape from reality, it is the workshop of reality. The states assumed in the final moments before sleep will take root, grow in silence, and blossom as experience. When I speak of the state akin to sleep, I do not mean deep slumber. I speak of that delicate threshold where the body grows heavy, thought slows, and imagery replaces reasoning. It is here that we plant the seeds of the new identity. You do not force yourself into this state. You drift into it, allowing the body to surrender while the mind remains gently aware. As you lie down tonight, do not bring the world with you. Release it. Let all accounts be settled, not with payment, but with assumption. Let the day dissolve. Let every concern fall away like garments upon the floor. Then, without strain, let your attention turn inward. Imagine the scene that implies your desire fulfilled. Not the effort toward it, but but the end itself. Feel the sheets beneath you, but imagine they are the sheets of the person who already has what they seek. Feel your breath, but breathe as one whose life has unfolded in ease. If wealth is your aim, do not imagine tomorrow's struggle. Imagine the relief already experienced, the joy already lived, the satisfaction already realized. You may begin with a single scene repeated again and again. Perhaps you imagine yourself receiving a letter that confirms your financial freedom. Perhaps you imagine a friend embracing you saying, "I knew prosperity would find you." Perhaps you imagine sitting at a dinner table, relaxed, speaking of life's blessings with quiet confidence. Whatever the scene, it must be short, vivid, and looped like a record until the feeling saturates you. Do not watch the scene as though observing a play. Live in it, be inside the body you wish to become. See through those eyes, feel through that skin, hear through those ears. The scene must be experienced, not observed. Your body will grow heavy, your breathing will slow, thoughts will wander. Do not resist. Each time you drift, gently return to the scene, not through force, but through surrender. Let the scene cradle you into sleep. Let the fulfilled desire be the last impression upon consciousness. This is not repetition of words, but repetition of being. You do not recite affirmations like a machine. You immerse yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it becomes natural. When the feeling becomes natural, sleep will claim you. And once the subconscious receives the impression, it must externalize it, for the subconscious is faithful and does not reason. If doubts arise, and they often do not fight them. Fighting doubt is to grant it power. Instead, gently replace it with the scene. If fear says, "What if it never comes?" respond not with argument, but with embodiment. A fulfilled man does not debate his fulfillment. He rests in it. Let the desired state feel inevitable. There will be nights where you fall asleep quickly, and nights where the world clings to you. Persist. A seed may not sprout the moment it touches soil, yet the seed planted tonight may bear fruit tomorrow, or next week, or in a season you cannot yet see. Creation is immediate in consciousness, but gradual in appearance. Do not measure progress by the outer world. Measure it by the inner feeling of naturalness. Once the new state feels more familiar than the old, the harvest is near. When you wake, do not rise as the old man. Rise in the same state you carried into sleep. Do not open the day with questions. Begin with quiet assurance. Before you open your eyes, ask nothing. Declare, "It is done." If the world appears unchanged, remain unmoved. Appearances reflect yesterday's assumptions. Today you are new. Night after night, repeat this ritual, not with strain, but with reverence. For sleep is the altar upon which you lay your new identity, and the world is the temple that reflects it. If you practice this, truly practice it, life will begin to shape itself around you in ways you could not foresee. New conversations, unexpected letters, sudden opportunities, subtle shifts in circumstance will form what I call the bridge of incidents. But remember, these are only reflections. The true change occurred the moment you fell asleep as someone new. Do not wait for proof. Become the proof. There comes a moment after assuming the state when nothing seems to happen. The world appears unchanged. Bills still arrive. Familiar patterns continue. And the mind, still conditioned by the old state, asks, "Where is the evidence?" This period frightens many, for they have not yet understood that manifestation begins long before it becomes visible. What you call nothing happening is merely the germination of the seed beneath the soil. The outer world is always late to the event. By the time you see the fruit, the tree has long since been born, and the tree was born in silence. Never judge your progress by appearances. Appearances represent the past. They are shadows, echoes, records of states previously assumed. If you insist upon immediate physical change, you reveal that you have not actually entered the new state. For the one who is does not look for proof. He rests. Creation is not instantaneous in appearance, because the world of form operates through time. Time is not an obstacle. It is the means by which the invisible becomes visible. Just as a child grows silently in the womb, your desire matures in silence within consciousness before taking form. The impatient man digs up the seed to see if it is sprouting. The The wise man waters it, protects it, and waits. The moment you assume the state, creation is finished. What follows is not the creation of the desire, but the unfolding of the bridge of incidents that leads from assumption to expression. This unfolding has a rhythm, and no two manifestations share the same tempo. Some appear swiftly, others ripen slowly, not because one is weaker, but because each state expresses itself in the most natural way according to the life of the individual. If you wish to know whether your assumption has taken root, do not look to the world. Look to your reactions. When the thought of your desire no longer brings longing, but calm acceptance, when the idea of not having it feels unnatural, when your body relaxes into the feeling of already being fulfilled, then the assumption is alive, and what is alive must bear fruit. Many fall away at this stage of silence because they believe manifestation should be a spectacle, a great burst of power, a sudden sign, a loud declaration from life. But life speaks softly. The greatest miracles arrive quietly. So quietly you may not recognize them until they have already passed. Some of the most profound changes begin with nothing more than a subtle shift in mood, a sense of ease where there was once tension, a gentle confidence where there was fear, a new sense of deserving where there was doubt. These movements are not trivial. They are the earliest fruits of the new state. During this period, resist the temptation to seek signs. The one who looks for signs confesses that he does not yet believe. When you plant a seed, you do not stand over the ground demanding proof. You know that growth has begun simply because the seed was planted. So it is with consciousness. Silence is not the absence of manifestation. It is the womb of manifestation. If anxiety rises, return to the state. Do not ask, when will it come? Such a question implies separation. Instead, rest in the felt truth. It is done. If impatience stirs, close your eyes and revisit the scene. Do not perform the scene to make it happen. Perform it to remind yourself that it has happened. Persistence is not repetition born of fear. Persistence is remaining loyal to the assumption even when the senses deny it, and they will deny it for a season. All old states demand to be heard once more before they dissolve. Do not grant them power by engaging them. Let them pass like wind across a still lake, without disturbing the depths. You will know the period of silence is ending when life begins to move of its own accord. Opportunities arise that you did not plan. People speak words that astonish you. Paths open that were previously hidden. Pay attention to these movements, not as signs to reassure you, but as confirmation that you remained faithful when nothing appeared to change. Many of my students have written to me saying, "Neville, nothing is happening," only to write again days later, confessing that everything changed at once. The appearance of suddenness was only the moment when the invisible broke through the surface. The real change had already occurred in the unseen. So do not think of silence as delay. Think of it as formation. The seed is alive. The soil is warm. The roots are spreading. The fruit is forming in darkness. Trust the unseen work. Your only task in this sacred period is to remain still in consciousness, to choose the new state again and again until it becomes your nature. Once the state becomes natural, the world cannot help but conform. Do not rush the harvest. You are not waiting for your desire to come. You are waiting for the world to catch up to who you already are. Many of you, as you listen to these teachings, will feel a stirring within you, a recognition of truth. Yet the human mind will still rise with questions. This is natural. The old state, though dissolved in principle, will attempt to assert itself through logic, memory, and fear. So I will now speak to those quiet thoughts that arise in the solitude of night, the doubts that whisper beneath the surface of faith. One question I hear more than any other is this: what do I do if I have debts? How can I assume wealth when the evidence against me is so loud? To this I reply, your debt is not the obstacle. Your attitude toward debt is the obstacle. Debt is simply the harvest of a past assumption, nothing more. It is not a sentence, nor a curse, nor a binding chain. It is merely old fruit still hanging on the branch. To fight debt is to give it life. To fear it is to nourish it. Instead, assume the state of one who is free. Imagine the relief already lived. See yourself as one whose accounts are settled, whose obligations are complete, whose life flows with quiet abundance. You do not pay debt by thinking about debt. You transcend debt by no longer identifying with the debtor. When you stop being the one who owes, the world rearranges itself to reflect freedom. Another question arises, Neville, what if I feel false when I declare abundance? What if I feel like I am lying to myself? If you feel false, it is not because the new state is untrue, it is because the old state has been true for so long that you have mistaken familiarity for truth. The first time an actor steps onto the stage, he does not feel like the character. He grows into the role by inhabiting it. The role feels false only until it feels natural, and the feeling of falseness is the final cry of the old identity resisting its dissolution. Persist gently. Do not fight the feeling. Relax into the new one. You are not lying. You are claiming the truth of your deeper being. Others ask, how do I stop negative thoughts? They return no matter how hard I try. You do not stop negative thoughts by force. What you resist persists, for the act of resistance is itself attention. You do not combat shadow by striking it, you turn on the light. When unwanted thoughts arise, do not argue with them. Do not plead with them. Simply turn your mind to the end. Let the new scene replace the old. Thought is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a servant to be directed. The mind must be commanded, not wrestled. You must remember, thoughts follow feeling. When you assume the state deeply enough, the thoughts that belong to that state come naturally. The poor man thinks poor thoughts. The wealthy man thinks wealthy thoughts. You need not correct every thought. If you correct the state, change the root, and the branches change by themselves. Then there are those who say, but Neville, what if my family, my friends, or my society tells me I am irresponsible, delusional, impractical? To them I say, never permit another to define your reality. Those who speak from fear will always label faith as foolishness, for they cannot recognize a world beyond their senses. They do not oppose you, they defend their own limitations. Do not resent them, bless them, but do not accept their verdict. Keep your vision sacred, especially from those who love you. For those who love you most deeply often fear most intensely that you will fail. Their caution is not wisdom, it is projection. If someone tells you, be realistic, understand that their realism is simply the memory of their own failures. If someone tells you, earn it through effort, know that they speak from a world where cause is external. You walk a different path. You create from within. A woman once wrote to me that her husband mocked her assumption of abundance, calling it childish imagination. She remained silent, remained faithful, and months later, it was he who announced with astonishment how lucky they had become. Those who doubt often become witnesses of the miracle they once denied. Another question haunts the hearts of many. What if I do everything you say and nothing happens? This question reveals the lingering belief that manifestation is an event outside of oneself. You are not doing these practices to persuade the universe. You are doing them to awaken to who you already are. If nothing appears to happen, it is because you have stopped too soon, measuring progress by sight instead of feeling. Faith is not tested when things appear to move. Faith is tested when all seems still. The world does not change because you hope it will. It changes because you no longer need it to. Then there is the quiet confession. Many are afraid to speak. What if I do not feel worthy of wealth? My dear friend, worthiness is not something to be earned. Worthiness is inherent. The very fact that you can imagine abundance is proof that it belongs to you. Desire is the evidence of possession. No man craves that which is alien to his nature. The feeling of unworthiness is the residue of old conditioning. Let it dissolve. You do not have to deserve what you are, only accept it. Another concern arises, if I assume wealth, will I neglect my responsibilities? No. When you assume wealth, you do not become careless, you become calm. A man who truly feels abundant acts with clarity, wisdom, and poise. The irresponsible are those driven by fear, not confidence. When you assume the state, your decisions rise to meet it. And now the final question, must I take action? Action is inevitable, but it must be born of the new state, not used to create it. When the inner alignment is true, you will feel moved, not pushed, not pressured, not frantic, but gently led. And when you act from that place, your movement is harmonious. The action that arises from fear binds you to fear. The action that arises from fulfillment expresses fulfillment. Let me leave you with this. The doubts you face are not obstacles. They are signposts. They show you precisely where the old man still lives. Do not fear them. Acknowledge them. And then return to the end. Again and again. Until the new state is the only state you can inhabit. When that day comes, the questions disappear. Not because they have been answered, but because they no longer exist. There comes a moment when knowledge must cease, when inquiry must fall silent, when the mind stops reaching and the soul begins to decree. You have listened, you have pondered, you have wrestled with these truths, but now I ask you to rise into a higher place, not as a seeker of wealth, but as the possessor of it. For no man attains what he seeks. He attains what he claims. All that you have heard will remain mere philosophy unless, in this moment, you dare to become the man you desire to be. Not tomorrow, not when conditions improve, not when your senses agree. Now, the world does not respond to your wishes. It responds to your state of being. So assume the consciousness of one who already possesses all that he desires, and you will see that the world bends obediently to your decree. I am not asking you to pretend. Pretending implies separation. I am asking you to embody the end, to wear the garment of fulfillment, to breathe as one who is already blessed, to speak not in future tense, but in the holy present, I am. For the great name of God is not, I will be. It is I am. When you declare this name, you speak creation itself. Let your spine straighten. Let your breath deepen. Let your heart quiet. For what you are about to do is not imagination as the world defines it. It is creation. Close your eyes for a moment, not to escape the world, but to command it. Feel the weight of abundance upon you. Feel the ease in your shoulders, the calm in your mind, the rhythm of a life that no longer strains. You are no longer the one who hopes. You are the one who has. Do not ask how the wealth will come. The one who possesses does not ask for instruction. He simply accepts the natural flow of life toward him. If a king speaks, he does not wonder whether his words carry power. They do. If a child breathes, he does not question whether air will meet him. It does. So when you speak from the state of fulfillment, the world responds, for it cannot resist the command of consciousness. Stand inwardly in that power. Feel yourself surrounded by the evidence of your wealth, not through sight, but through knowing. The rich man does not wait for his accounts to be balanced to feel secure. His security creates the accounts. The wealthy woman does not wait for jewels to feel adorned. Her sense of worth decorates her world. Now speak silently from this state. Say within yourself, not as one asking, but as one declaring, I am the man who has already received. I am the woman who is already provided for. I am the being through whom abundance expresses itself. And feel the words settle into your flesh, your bones, your breath. The decree is not in the words, it is in the knowing behind the words. If doubt arises, let it fade. You are not here to battle shadows. You are here to embody light. And where light is, shadow cannot persist. When the senses deny your claim, let that be your proof that you have risen above them. Creation begins where evidence ends. You not lower yourself to meet the world. Command the world to rise to meet you. Tonight, walk through life's doorway as the one who already owns all that he desires. Not metaphorically. Literally, take your next breath as a wealthy being. Rise from your seat as a wealthy being. Move through your home as a wealthy being. Do not return to the old posture, the old tone, the old inner voice. That man has died. Do not resurrect him. You are no longer becoming. You are being. The world, sensing your transformation, will shift. People will speak to you differently. Opportunities will appear without effort. Resources will gather around you as though obeying a silent command. You are not witnessing miracles. You are witnessing the natural outflow of a new state of consciousness. And now, I speak this to you, not as instruction, but as decree. Assume the consciousness of the one who already possesses all wealth, all ease, all sufficiency, and the world will obey you. For you are not the beggar at the gates of fate. You are the author of destiny itself. You are imagination, clothed in flesh. You are the living God, dreaming worlds into form. The time for asking has passed. The time for becoming is here. now rise. There is a moment in every journey of awakening where words must bow to the truth they have carried. We began tonight as those who inquire, who question, who reach towards some distant promise. But now we conclude not as seekers, but as possessors. For nothing I have spoken is meant to be admired intellectually. It is meant to be lived, breathed, embodied. The law is not a philosophy. It is the very structure of consciousness. And consciousness is being. You have been told from childhood that life happens to you, that outcomes are delivered by fate, circumstance, economy, chance, or the decisions of others. But tonight, you have tasted a deeper truth. Life does not happen to you. Life happens through you. Every event, every opportunity, every sum of money, every relationship, every closed door, and every open one has arisen from the state you have assumed. It could never be otherwise, for the world is yourself pushed out. And now you know this, not as theory, but as revelation. So let us gather all that has been said into a single, quiet understanding. You do not need to chase wealth. You do not need to pursue opportunity. You do not need to strive, beg, plead, or prove yourself worthy. You need only assume the consciousness of the one who already has, and all things will gather themselves around that assumption as naturally as water flows downhill. The world rushes to fill the identity you wear. Therefore, ask yourself not, how do I get money, but who am I being? If you persist in the identity of the one who lacks, then even abundance will drain through your fingers. But if you wear the identity of the one who is blessed, who is provided for, who is wealthy in essence, and not merely in appearance, then nothing can prevent the outer world from mirroring that inner truth. Tonight, the garment has been handed to you. Put it on. And though this journey began with money, though we have spoken of wealth and provision and abundance, let us end upon a higher mountain. For the true purpose of these teachings is not to make you rich, though they will. Their purpose is not to fill your purse, though that shall come. The true purpose is to reveal to you the nature of your own being. For if wealth manifests through your assumption, if doors open by your decree, if the world rearranges itself to echo the state you choose, then what does that say of you? It says you are not merely a creature within creation. You are the creator expressing himself as the creature. You are the Father and the Son. You are the seed and the fruit. You are the dreamer and the dream. All that you have sought in Scripture, all that you have prayed to in temples, all that you have worshipped in fear or hope has been within you, waiting for recognition. When the ancients wrote that God created the world through the Word, they spoke of imagination. When they wrote that the kingdom of heaven is within you, they pointed to consciousness. When they recorded the sacred name I Am, they revealed the key. So remember this above all else. The law brings you things, but the promise brings you God. And the greatest discovery you shall ever make is that the God you seek is your own wonderful human imagination. Now, as you rise from this moment, do so as one reborn. Do not return to the old posture of waiting. Do not slip back into the old inner voice that pleads and hopes. Walk as the wealthy one. Speak as the fulfilled one. Rest as the beloved of life itself. Let your days unfold in calm certainty, not because you trust the world, but because you trust yourself. The world is the shadow. You are the light. And as this night comes to a close, let us seal the truth, not in words alone, but in being. Take a breath. Feel the quiet power that now rests upon you, and say, not as a wish, not as a hope, but as your living identity, I have it now. Say it again, softer, deeper, from the innermost chamber of consciousness, I have it now. Let it echo through the silence, not as a phrase, but as a declaration of who you are. May this night be counted unto you for righteousness. May the feeling you now carry harden into fact. May the world rise to meet the state you assume. And may you remember, not just tonight, but for all your days, you are the operant power.